Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Ripe for Reissue. And joining me is the backside of Finster. Hey, Finster. Finster, honey. Yes, I know. Yeah, she doesn't want to be bothered, can't you tell? All right, so we won't bother her. But she's there, and we're talking about what ought to be reissued. And, you know, back in the day, when not everything was coming out in huge box sets, and you could collect stuff, this Decca France twofer came out because, you know, the various divisions of Universal at that time, or Polygram as it was known. It was Universal then, or was it Polygram? It was Polygram. It wasn't even Universal then. They had their own regional or national divisions, and they released their own stuff. And this twofer came out containing Solti's LSO Bartók recordings. And they're his best. I mean, clearly his best. And it's really kind of fascinating because Solti, now that everything's in boxes, which are all out of print, of course, had a wonderful period when he was in London. He did some very good Mahler. He did some very terrible Mahler. He did some British music, really good Elgar and other things, Belshazzar's Feast and whatnot. But, you know, he was Hungarian, and Bartók was a specialty with him throughout his career. And even played piano in the Sonata for Two Pianos and Percussion with Murray Pariah. Not wonderfully, but he did it. Anyway, he recorded mono Bartók with the London Phil, and then he went to Chicago and remade everything in digital sound, starting with the Concerto for Orchestra and doing the other stuff. But in between, he had done with the London Symphony Orchestra the major orchestral works, including, and let's see what they are. He did piano concertos too with Ashkenazi, right? Yes, he did. But he did the Dance Suite, the Suite from the Miraculous Mandarin, the Concerto for Orchestra, which is, yes, that's here, and the Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta. And those recordings, that Concerto for Orchestra and the Dance Suite, but most of all, the Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta were fabulous. And the MSPC, as we call it, Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta, is one of the great ones. And there aren't many. There really aren't many. I mean, there's this one, and Neville Mariner, and Fritz Reiner, and Zoltan Kocis, and arguably the Carillon DG, and the Dochnani Cleveland. I mean, I can rattle them off. Ones that really have like no weak links, and that's about it. There's maybe half a dozen, let's say. And the rest of them, there are some very good ones. I mean, there are, but on the whole, the best we can do is those. And Solti was always in competition with himself. He remade stuff over and over again, like so many of these artists, and less well, especially the Chicago recordings, because it's not that Chicago was a bad orchestra. They weren't. They were fabulous. But Solti, at that stage of his career, doing these things for the second or third time, they were using early digital equipment, which made for very glassy and unappealing sonics, number one. And as we've just discussed, it's not that the bad sonics wreck the performance, but they don't really help it. And Solti's own interpretations became just, they were more perfunctory. You know, he was always a quick conductor. He didn't slow down. He didn't get sloppy. He was never a major disciplinarian either, but he wasn't sloppy. He just got uninteresting. And his lack of I don't know what to say, commitment, conviction in the music was I think his major failing toward the end of his career, when they just kept redoing the same stuff over and over again. And in Bartók particularly, you know, Bartók is not a composer who lets you get away with imprecision or lack of focus. He's not a romantic in the sense that you want to like ooze all over the music, but you know, he's very structurally detailed. And so you have to know where everything goes, and you have to play with great rhythmic precision and drive and passion. And Solti had that in his LSO period when he was younger and a bit fresher. And these were his 1960s stereo recordings. He'd done some of the same repertoire previously, and he really gave it his all. And the orchestra played really, really well for him. And that music for strings, percussion, and Celesta just has always impressed me as one of the great recordings of the work. And I don't understand why he couldn't duplicate it. But so many artists don't. You know, there are all kinds of circumstances that have to come together to make a great recording. And this was a case where everything did come together for that LSO version, and it didn't come together for his subsequent one. So there you have it, my friends. One of the greatest recordings ever. It is, when it should be ripe for reissue. All of his Bartók with the LSO separately. Find the best. That's what I keep saying to these people. Find the best things these artists do and release that. Go with that. And things would be so much nicer and easier for all of us, wouldn't they? I mean, it's really a great recording, and it ought to be in print always. These LSO Bartók recordings, they show Solti at his best, and why not show him at his best? He did all kinds of things that show him as his not best, right? Anyway, keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.